Have you ever sensed that someone feels a quiet connection with you, but they never say it outright? Especially in situations where boundaries matter, like when a woman is married, attraction doesn't come with bold moves or obvious signs. It shows up gently, in small, subtle ways that speak more to emotion than intention. In today's video, we're exploring 7 of those subtle signs. These aren't about flirtation or crossing lines. They're about emotional resonance, presence, the way 2 people can feel something quietly while still honoring respect and boundaries. And if you find this kind of thoughtful breakdown helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I share daily content that explores connection, human behavior, and the unspoken layers of communication, always with depth and respect. Let's get into it. Number 1, she remembers small details about you. And here's what that might mean. In a world where most people are too busy, distracted, or preoccupied to truly listen, someone remembering small details about you can feel surprisingly meaningful. It may seem like a simple act on the surface, mentioning something you told them last week, recalling your favorite kind of tea, or asking about a situation you thought they'd forgotten. But when a married woman remembers the small things, especially in a consistent or thoughtful way, it often reveals something deeper. Not something romantic or inappropriate, but something emotionally intelligent. A subtle kind of attentiveness, a kind of inner noticing. This isn't about flirtation. This isn't about crossing lines. This is about human connection and what it says when someone chooses to listen, to care, and to hold on to parts of your story. Here's what it really means when a woman, particularly one in a committed relationship, remembers small details about you and why it's often more powerful than any grand gesture. 1. Emotional attunement begins with paying attention. When someone is emotionally attuned to you, they're not just hearing your words, they're listening for meaning. They're present, they're engaged, and they're tuned in to the essence of what you're saying, not just the facts. So when a married woman remembers a small detail you casually mentioned, like the name of your dog, the book you were excited to read, or the appointment you were nervous about, it often points to emotional presence. In that moment, she wasn't distracted. She wasn't halfway engaged. She was there, mentally, emotionally, and respectfully. That kind of listening is rare, and even if she's not doing it with any particular intention, it's still a quiet act of recognition. It says, I was paying attention to you. I valued what you shared enough to hold on to it. 2. Selective memory reflects emotional priority. We don't remember everything. In fact, most of what we hear in passing slips through the cracks of our attention. What does stick? The things that matter to us, even in small ways. So when someone remembers a detail about you, it usually means that your words activated something inside them. Interest, resonance, concern, or curiosity. It means you stood out in a sea of everyday noise. It means your voice lingered a little longer in their mental space. For a married woman, this doesn't mean she's romantically interested. It may simply mean that you occupy a space in her awareness that's just a little more memorable than others. And that's not about desire, it's about value. It's about recognizing depth in someone and holding on to it. 3. It signals respect for who you are as a person. To remember someone's words is to honor their story. When a woman recalls small things about you, it suggests that she sees you not as background noise, but as someone whose experience matters. Maybe she remembers that you don't like speaking in large groups and subtly creates space for you to share in smaller settings. Maybe she remembers the name of your sibling you're worried about. Maybe she asks how a long-forgotten goal of yours is coming along, weeks or even months later. These are not acts of flirtation. they are acts of regard. And when they come from someone who has no agenda, no romantic pursuit, and no external motive, they mean even more. They show that your inner world was noticed, that it mattered, and that she respected it enough to make room for it in her memory. 4. It could reflect a natural curiosity about you. Sometimes, remembering small details is simply the byproduct of curiosity, not in a romantic way, but in a human way. Some people have a naturally inquisitive nature. When they sense someone has depth, they pay closer attention. They want to understand what drives them, how they see the world, what makes them light up, or where they're struggling. If a married woman seems to remember your preferences, your patterns, or even your small anecdotes, it may just mean that you're someone she finds genuinely interesting. Number 2, her body language opens around you. What that really means. Body language is a quiet yet powerful form of communication. It's the unspoken dialogue that reveals how we feel long before we put anything into words. For some, body language is nearly imperceptible. A subtle shift in posture, a slight change in tone, a momentary glance. But for those who pay attention, it says more than spoken language ever could. When a woman's body language opens around you, it speaks volumes. It's not just a social cue or a fleeting gesture. It can be a meaningful indicator of how she feels in your presence, about herself, about the moment, and sometimes about you. Let's unpack what this openness really means, without resorting to cliché or shallow interpretations. No games, no guesswork, just the simple truth rooted in respect, human connection, and emotional awareness. 1. She feels safe. With you, safety is the foundation of any genuine interaction. When a woman's body language becomes more relaxed and open around you, it often indicates that she feels emotionally and psychologically safe in your presence. She may uncross her arms, stand or sit facing you more directly, or lean in slightly when you speak. These movements don't necessarily signal attraction. They signify trust. They say, I don't feel the need to guard myself right now. In a world where people often feel the need to protect their boundaries, this kind of openness is a quiet form of vulnerability, not the dramatic kind, but the grounded, calm kind that says, I can let down my walls a little here. You're not just someone she talks to. You're someone she feels she doesn't have to defend herself from. 2. She's comfortable being herself. Authenticity can't thrive where there's tension or judgment. When a woman's posture, expressions, and gestures begin to flow more freely around you, it's often because she feels like she doesn't have to perform. This could look like her laughing more openly, using more natural hand movements while speaking, or maintaining more consistent eye contact. Her shoulders may drop from their usual guarded tension. Her overall body language takes on a rhythm of ease rather than restriction. She isn't trying to impress or protect herself. She's simply being. And that says a lot about how you make her feel. Accepted, understood, and human. 3. You bring calm, not chaos. Some people carry an energy that is loud, erratic, or difficult to feel at ease around. Others bring a quiet sense of order, like stepping into a room where everything makes sense again. If her body language shifts when you're around, if she becomes more present, if her breathing slows, if her gestures lose their stiffness, it might be because you create space for calm. Perhaps you don't interrupt. Perhaps you genuinely listen. Perhaps you don't push or rush her thoughts. This creates a sense of emotional safety, a space where she can exhale. And when someone can exhale around you, their body shows it. Their movements become unguarded, their shoulders relax, their hands rest more naturally, and their presence deepens. 4. She feels seen, without feeling scrutinized. There's a profound difference between being looked at and being seen. When a woman feels seen in a way that honors her humanity, not her appearance, her body language often responds with openness. This might include a more engaged posture, a relaxed brow, or a softer gaze when she speaks to you. She might hold your eye contact without flinching. She doesn't feel the need to fix herself or hide behind distractions or adjust her behavior to match what she thinks you want. She simply shows up as she is. This doesn't happen because she wants something from you. It happens because she doesn't feel judged. You've made space for her to be real, and her body naturally reflects that freedom. 5. Your presence. Doesn't demand, it invites. Some people command attention through force, through loudness, dominance, or the need to be the center of every conversation. Others draw presence through quiet confidence and grounded respect. When your presence invites rather than demands, people around you, including women, often respond by softening. Her body language might open, not because she's trying to send a message, but because she doesn't feel the pressure to shrink or resist. You're not competing with her energy. You're not overpowering her space. You're simply allowing connection to unfold naturally. And that is rare. 6. She's engaged in the moment. We live in a world of constant distraction, notifications, background noise, multitasking. When someone is truly in the moment with you, it shows. When a woman's body language becomes more fluid, grounded, or expressive around you, it may be because she's no longer divided between you and 1,000 other thoughts. She's tuned in. She's not checking the clock. Her focus is whole. Maybe her posture leans forward slightly. Maybe her arms stay open or rest gently at her sides. Maybe her smile lingers more naturally. This isn't just about attention. It's about connection. She's not just hearing your words. She's responding with her whole self. And that's a rare kind of presence that people only give when they feel it's safe, welcomed, and reciprocated. 7. You don't try to control the interaction. Control creates tension. Freedom creates flow. When a woman feels she can guide the conversation, express disagreement, or move naturally without being micromanaged, her body responds. She doesn't need to calculate every gesture or tone. She's not navigating a power dynamic. She's just existing in the space with you. That ease fosters body language that is open, not because she's trying to send a signal, but because she's not contorting herself to meet expectations. And when a woman doesn't feel the need to adapt or adjust herself constantly, her presence becomes more relaxed, fluid, and authentic. 8. You meet her with respect, not expectation. Expectations weigh heavily, even if they're unspoken. People can feel when there's an agenda in the room, and they often respond with subtle tension or withdrawal. But when you show up with respect, not to get something, but to simply share space, that unspoken pressure lifts. And often, so does the guardedness. She might mirror your relaxed energy. She might gesture more openly, speak with more emotion, or maintain steady eye contact. Her entire presence becomes more expansive, not because she's trying to signal interest, but because she doesn't feel obligated to perform. Respect creates space, and space is what allows someone's natural self to show up. 9. Her subconscious trusts you. Sometimes body language opens before someone even consciously realizes it. It's not always a logical process. It can be instinctive. This is the result of a subtle emotional calibration. Her nervous system is reading your tone, your posture, your pace, your reactions, and deciding this is a safe place to be. You may not notice it in the moment, but her body does. That trust may express itself in the way she relaxes her hands, the way she stops fidgeting, or the way she mirrors your gestures without thinking. These aren't performative behaviors. They're signals of unconscious safety. And this kind of trust isn't easy to earn. It comes from the way you show up consistently, calmly, and respectfully. 10. You allow the relationship to evolve naturally. Pressure kills presence. When someone feels like they have to define or label every moment, it creates friction. But when you let the connection grow at its own pace, body language often follows suit. She may not feel rushed or evaluated. She may simply feel like she can be. And her body, free from the weight of interpretation, expresses that through openness. That openness is not always about you. Sometimes it's about what your presence allows her to be, herself, unfiltered. That is a rare and quiet kind of gift. Number 3, she engages in deeper or meaningful conversations. What it really means. Human connection isn't always built through grand gestures or dramatic moments. More often it's woven quietly, thread by thread, through conversation. Not the kind filled with small talk or polite nods, but the kind that lingers, the kind that feels real, thoughtful, and alive. When a woman, especially one who is married, finds herself engaging in deeper, more meaningful conversations with someone outside her relationship, it can be a sign of something quietly significant. Not a betrayal, not a threat, but an indication that, on some level, she feels a resonance, an ease, a safety in being real. This article unpacks why those deeper conversations happen, what they may signal, and why it's not about romance or seduction. It's about emotional presence, psychological comfort, and human connection. 1. Meaningful conversations. Reflect emotional comfort. The first and most important thing to understand is that meaningful conversations are rarely one-sided. A woman will only go deeper in conversation if she feels emotionally safe. That safety might be born from your calm demeanor, the way you listen without judgment, or simply the tone you carry in your presence. Emotional comfort is powerful. When someone feels safe to speak from the heart, they naturally open up. It's not always about vulnerability in the dramatic sense. It can be as simple as her talking about her values, her worries, or her worldview in a way she doesn't with others. She may not even realize she's opening up. But the depth of the conversation reveals that something in your presence allows her to be more fully herself. That's not about romance. It's about trust. 2. She feels understood and seen. When someone gives you their full attention and asks thoughtful questions, it creates a kind of psychological mirror. It says, I see you. I hear you. You matter in this moment. If a married woman finds herself consistently drawn to talking with you in ways that go beyond the surface, it may be because she feels understood. That doesn't mean she's dissatisfied with her marriage. It simply means that, in your presence, a particular part of her feels seen. And that's something most people deeply crave. This is not about validation in a romantic sense. It's more subtle than that. It's about recognition. It's about the rare feeling of being listened to without interruption, without agenda, and without the need to prove anything. 3. The conversation feels balanced, not performative. When there's genuine connection, the conversation flows easily. There's no need to impress or perform. Each person is simply present, responding from a place of authenticity. If a woman speaks to you in a way that feels unfiltered, thoughtful, and steady, it may be because she doesn't feel the need to wear a mask. She's not trying to be anyone but herself. And in doing so, she allows the conversation to drift into places that hold real meaning. This might include sharing memories, beliefs, or observations about life. It might mean asking for your input on something she genuinely values. The key here is balance. She's not oversharing or venting. She's engaging. And that kind of engagement is a quiet signal of internal regard. 4. She's curious about your mind, not just your life. When someone is only making small talk, they'll ask about what you do. But when someone feels drawn to you intellectually or emotionally, they'll ask about what you think. A woman who engages in deeper conversations may start asking more reflective questions about your beliefs, how you see the world, how you handle challenges, or what has shaped you. These questions aren't just fillers, they're invitations. They signal a deeper curiosity, not about your day-to-day schedule, but about your inner world. That kind of interest reflects intellectual attraction, not in a romantic way, but in a way that values your mind. And in today's world, where surface-level interactions are everywhere, finding someone whose mind you respect can be quietly magnetic. 5. She listens with full presence. True conversation is not just about speaking, it's about listening. If she listens to you with full attention, no glancing at her phone, no rushed replies, no changing the subject, it means she's present. And presence is a kind of silent compliment. It says, this moment matters. It suggests that your words carry weight with her, that your insights are not just heard, but considered. This isn't about flirtation. It's about focus. A woman who offers this level of listening is often signaling, even unintentionally, that she values what you bring, not just to the conversation, but to her experience of it. 6. She brings up conversations you've had before. When someone circles back to a conversation you had days or even weeks ago, it shows that it stayed with them, that they thought about it later, that your words echoed beyond the moment. If she refers to something you mentioned in passing, or builds on a deeper conversation you once had, it suggests that your conversations are not forgettable. They live somewhere in her mind, and she returns to them because they offered something meaningful. This might be something simple. You once said something that stuck with me, or it might be more indirect. I was thinking about what you mentioned last time about perspective. Either way, it's a sign that the exchange mattered, and that kind of mental presence is no small thing. 7. She doesn't rush to end the conversation. Time is one of the most precious things we have. When someone is eager to wrap up a conversation, you can feel it. But when someone slows down, even slightly, to remain in a conversation with you, that too is a signal. If a woman lingers a bit longer when she speaks with you, it may not be intentional, but it reflects something internal, a sense of calm, of wanting to extend the space because it feels good to be in it. Again, this doesn't mean anything inappropriate. It simply suggests that she enjoys your company, your thoughts, your energy, your way of being, and in a world full of rushed moments, a small pause can speak volumes. 8. The conversations feel grounded, not emotionally risky. A key thing to note is that even though these conversations go deep, they don't feel risky. They feel steady, grounded. She's not seeking emotional rescue, nor is she crossing emotional boundaries. Instead, she's staying rooted in respect, even as she opens up. That's important, because it reflects maturity. It shows that even if there's a draw toward you, she's navigating it with care and self-awareness. She values the connection enough not to let it slide into anything confusing or inappropriate. Number 4. She notices and responds to your moods. Not everyone has the capacity or the willingness to tune into another person's emotional state. We live in a world full of distractions where the norm is often to rush through interactions or stay preoccupied with our own concerns. But every once in a while, you come across someone different. Someone whose presence is attentive and grounded. Someone who, without you having to say a word, can tell when something is off with you. She is one of those rare people. She notices your moods and, more importantly, she responds to them in ways that make you feel understood and respected. This isn't a performance. It's not about control or influence. It's simply who she is. Someone who is emotionally observant, grounded in empathy, and thoughtful in how she engages with those around her. Let's explore what it really means when a woman is this emotionally attuned to you, and why her ability to notice and respond to your moods reflects something profoundly human and admirable. 1. She pays close attention without being overbearing. Some people ask how you're doing, but it's out of habit, not sincerity. She, on the other hand, truly observes. She listens not only to your words, but also to your silences. She watches how you enter a room, how you greet others, the pace of your movements, the energy in your eyes. And she does all of this without invading your space or prying into your personal life. She's the kind of person who notices when your tone is a few degrees off, when your smile doesn't quite reach your eyes, when your laughter seems forced or your usual spark is dimmed. But rather than jumping in with assumptions or trying to fix things, she simply becomes more present. Her awareness is quiet and respectful. This kind of attentiveness is a rare skill. It doesn't come from being nosy or controlling. It comes from being genuinely connected to people and caring about how they feel. 2. Her responses are tailored to you, not generalized. What makes her stand out is not just that she notices your mood shifts, but that she responds in a way that aligns with you, your personality, your values, your communication style. If she knows you need space when you're upset, she offers it, without making you feel guilty. If you're the kind of person who needs to talk things out, she creates a comfortable environment for that. If humor lightens your mood, she gently weaves it in. She doesn't respond based on what would work for her, but rather on what she understands would help you. This type of thoughtful response can be deeply grounding. It makes you feel like you're not just seen, but seen accurately, and responded to with respect and care, not judgment or pity. 3. She doesn't force you to explain everything. Sometimes, the most powerful support comes not from words, but from presence. She doesn't pressure you to explain yourself or expect you to articulate everything clearly. She understands that emotional states are often messy, and that people don't always have the energy or clarity to put things into words. So she sits with you in the silence. She respects your inner world even when you can't express it. Her calm presence communicates something simple but powerful. You don't have to perform your feelings for me to care about them. This kind of emotional patience is profoundly comforting. It tells you that you're allowed to be human, even when you don't have all the answers. 4th, her sensitivity isn't about weakness. It's about strength. It's easy to mistake emotional awareness for fragility, but in truth, it takes great internal strength to remain open to other people's emotions without becoming overwhelmed or reactive. She doesn't mirror your mood in a way that escalates tension. If you're anxious, she doesn't become anxious with you. If you're irritable, she doesn't snap back. Instead, she becomes a grounding force, someone who can hold space for your emotion without losing her balance. This is emotional maturity in action. Her ability to notice your mood and respond with calmness rather than emotional volatility speaks to her deep inner strength. She doesn't react to every shift in your mood. She responds, and there is a world of difference between those two things. 5. She doesn't make it about herself. One of the most frustrating things is when you're going through something difficult and someone hijacks the moment by making it about themselves. Oh, That reminds me of my problem. Or, I totally understand, I went through something so similar. But she doesn't do that. When she notices your mood is different, she doesn't shift the spotlight. She stays focused on you, not out of pity, but out of care. She knows the value of giving someone their moment, to be heard, to be acknowledged, to be held emotionally, even if only briefly. She doesn't see your mood as an inconvenience. She doesn't rush you through it. She respects your internal state, however messy or quiet or confusing it may be, and she chooses not to center herself in your emotional landscape. 6. She knows when to step in and when to step back. Emotional awareness is not just about noticing feelings, it's also about discerning how and when to respond. She intuitively knows that sometimes a small gesture is enough. A cup of tea, a reassuring smile, a quiet presence in the room. And other times, she senses that a deeper conversation is needed, or maybe a walk, or some kind of distraction to help you shift your focus. And just as importantly, she knows when to let you be. Her respect for your autonomy is unwavering. She doesn't cling, push, or hover. Her responsiveness is balanced and mature, shaped not by her own anxieties, but by a real understanding of you. 7. She doesn't just notice negative moods. She celebrates the good ones too. Her emotional awareness isn't limited to when you're struggling. She also notices when your eyes light up with excitement, when your energy is high, when you're proud of something, or even just in a peaceful state of calm. And she celebrates that with you, not in a performative way, but in a quietly supportive one. A genuine smile, a thoughtful comment, a shared laugh. She lets the joy breathe and affirms it. That's one of the most refreshing things about her. She's not scanning your moods to manage you, fix you, or protect herself. She's present because she cares. And that means holding space for the highs, the lows, and everything in between. 8. Her presence encourages self-reflection. When someone responds to you with sensitivity and understanding, it often inspires you to look inward, not out of shame or guilt, but from a place of calm honesty. You might begin to ask yourself deeper questions. Why am I feeling this way? What's been weighing on me? What do I need right now? Her gentle presence acts like a mirror, not one that distorts or exaggerates, but one that simply reflects your truth back to you. It's not about advice or guidance. It's about the kind of connection that allows you to access your own wisdom more clearly. 9. She sees you as a whole person, not just a mood in the moment. This is perhaps the most beautiful part of it all. When she notices your mood, she doesn't reduce you to it. She doesn't treat you like you're broken, fragile, or defined by whatever emotional state you're in. She understands that moods are transient, that you're bigger than your feelings, that you have depth, history, and strength, even when you're quiet, sad, or withdrawn. So her response doesn't come with judgment or labels. It comes with grace. It says, I know this is just a moment. I see you beyond this moment. That kind of seeing, gentle, clear, and holistic, is rare. And it creates a safe emotional space where you can simply be human. Number 5. She finds reasons to cross paths. Naturally. Human connection is rarely straightforward. Often, the deepest interactions are shaped not by what is said, but by what is felt and quietly acted upon. And when it comes to a married woman who feels a quiet draw towards someone, whether it's admiration, emotional curiosity, or subtle resonance, her behavior may shift in nuanced, unspoken ways. One of the most telling signs of this inner shift is that she finds gentle, natural reasons to be where you are. She doesn't make grand gestures. She doesn't step beyond the lines of her own integrity. But still, she appears. she shows up. And if you're paying close attention, you'll notice it isn't entirely accidental. Let's explore why and how this happens, what it actually means, and why it's often more about energy, comfort, and emotional resonance than anything romantic or inappropriate. The psychology behind subtle proximity. Before diving into the signs, it's worth understanding a basic principle of human behavior. We are drawn toward what makes us feel alive, seen, or internally balanced. When someone consistently offers a feeling of calm, interest, or mental engagement, we often seek to be near that source, sometimes without even realizing we're doing it. This behavior isn't inherently romantic. It's about emotional gravity, a kind of pull toward presence, conversation, or mutual ease. In the case of a married woman, she may not be trying to see you more often. In fact, if she's aware of her feelings, she may even try to do the opposite to maintain respectful boundaries. But still, if there's a natural sense of connection, of being understood, of feeling emotionally noticed, she might find herself showing up in the same spaces as you more often than chance would predict. Let's unpack the way she might do this in a manner that is subtle, respectful, and rooted in emotional intelligence, not romantic pursuit. 1. She adjusts her routine just slightly. This isn't about making big changes. She's not rearranging her entire life to cross paths with you. But you might notice small shifts. Maybe she takes her break at a slightly different time than usual, and it just happens to align with yours. Perhaps she starts attending a meeting or group that you've always been part of, citing a reasonable reason like wanting to stay more involved. Or maybe she lingers in a hallway a little longer than necessary, giving you the chance to enter or pass by. These changes are minor, they're easy to explain, but what makes them noteworthy is their consistency. If it happens once, it's probably nothing. But if it becomes a quiet pattern, it's worth noticing. Not because it's wrong or inappropriate, but because it reveals that something about your presence feels important to her. Comforting, perhaps, energizing, or simply real. 2. She doesn't rush away when she sees you. Life is full of transitions. People move from one task to the next. Most conversations are quick, transactional, and timed. But if she consistently seems to slow down when you're around, pausing to chat, allowing for overlap, or stretching a moment into something a bit more meaningful, it could be a sign that she values your presence more than she lets on. This isn't about seeking attention. It's about wanting to experience you, not in a romantic sense, but in a human one, the way you talk, the way you listen, the steadiness of your tone, or the interest you bring to conversation. Something about it resonates. And rather than fleeing from it, she gently leans toward it. That subtle leaning in can be felt in the way she doesn't mind standing a moment longer in the same space. It's in the time she allows, even if she's on a schedule. It's in the decision not to retreat so quickly. 3. She joins group activities. You're part of. Another subtle way a woman may find herself crossing paths more often is by becoming part of the groups or communities you're already engaged in. This could look like her volunteering for a committee you're on, signing up for a class you've attended for a while, or becoming more involved in a work-related initiative where you happen to be present. She'll likely have good reasons for joining, many of which are entirely legitimate. But when there are many possible places to be, and she chooses the one you're in again and again, it can hint at something deeper, not an intention to overstep, but rather an appreciation for your energy, input, or quiet company. People gravitate toward comfort, toward people who make them feel more themselves. If you represent that even just a little, she may find herself orbiting those spaces where your presence is felt. 4. She mentions common interests that create overlap. In conversation, she may bring up shared interests that naturally create reasons to engage. This isn't manipulation. It's usually a gentle expression of enthusiasm. Number 6, her tone softens around you. There are moments in life when words are less important than how they're spoken. When a woman's tone softens around someone, it's not just a change in volume. It's a subtle shift in how she relates to that person. It speaks of trust, comfort, and something deeper than what can be easily named. Her softened tone reflects the presence of a connection, one that feels emotionally safe, unforced, and grounded in mutual respect. While many people assume that shifts in tone are merely byproducts of personality or mood, they often reveal much more. A softened tone is, in many cases, a quiet but powerful response to how someone makes another feel. Below are key reasons why a woman's tone might soften around you, each grounded in a respectful, non-romantic understanding of human connection. 1. She feels emotionally safe with you. Emotional safety is a cornerstone of meaningful communication. When a woman feels emotionally safe, her nervous system naturally relaxes. Her tone of voice becomes more fluid, her words less guarded. It's not about manipulation or performance. It's about feeling understood and not needing to be on edge. In environments where people feel judged or rushed, their tone becomes clipped or defensive. But when someone brings a calming, non-judgmental presence into the room, it invites softness. If she softens her tone when she speaks to you, it might be because your presence doesn't trigger her need to defend or perform. It signals trust that you will hear her, not just her words, but what's behind them. This kind of safety doesn't come from what you say in a single moment, but from the consistency of how you treat people over time. 2. She feels genuinely heard. One of the rarest and most healing experiences in the modern world is to feel truly listened to. Not interrupted, not fixed, not minimized, just heard. If you consistently show that you are the kind of person who listens without rushing to conclusions or asserting your own views over hers, she may naturally soften. Her voice around you might take on a tone that's less about guarding herself and more about openness. This softening doesn't come from a place of needing to impress. It comes from a quiet appreciation that she's in the presence of someone who values what she has to say. 3. You're not trying to control the conversation. Control changes everything. When people sense that someone is trying to steer a conversation toward a particular outcome, whether through pressure, flattery, or dominance, they subconsciously brace themselves. Their tone often becomes formal, rehearsed, or slightly defensive. But if you allow the conversation to unfold naturally, without pushing or prodding, that's when a soft tone is more likely to emerge. It's the tone of someone who feels like they're not being manipulated, judged, or pulled in a direction they didn't ask for. Instead of hearing the voice of someone trying to maintain their autonomy, you'll hear the voice of someone who knows she has it. 4. You don't rush. Her pacing plays a massive role in how people relate to one another. In a world that demands speed, attention, and efficiency, there's something deeply respectful about allowing someone to speak at their own rhythm. When you don't rush her thoughts, her stories, or her pauses, it communicates something rare. Patience. That patience creates space, and within that space, people often feel freer to be themselves. Her softened tone might be the sound of someone who doesn't feel the need to rush to be understood. She knows your weight, and that's a powerful feeling, not because she owes you anything for it, but because it gives her the dignity of her own pace. 5. You show gentle strength not dominance. There is a quiet strength that doesn't need to overpower to be felt. People can sense when someone is grounded, calm, and confident without being controlling. This kind of presence doesn't intimidate. It invites calm. A woman's tone softens when she is around someone whose strength doesn't make her feel small. Instead, she feels safe, respected, and able to speak without fear of being diminished. That strength might be in your silence, your posture, or your ability to stay calm when others become reactive. Whatever the form, it sets a tone, literally, and hers often responds by softening. 6. You make her feel like a whole person. In many interactions, women are often compartmentalized, seen only for their roles, responsibilities, or surface appearances. When someone sees her as a whole person with a story, a history, and complexity, her tone may shift. It's the difference between being treated as an individual versus being treated as a role. When you respond to her with curiosity, respect, and no assumptions, she notices. She softens not because she's trying to win favor, but because she doesn't feel the need to protect herself from being flattened into something less than she is. 7. She recognizes your stillness. Stillness is rare. Many people bring with them a kind of frantic energy, always needing to fill silence, prove something, or correct others. If you carry stillness into your conversations, it becomes a sanctuary. Stillness doesn't mean you're quiet all the time. It means you're not reactive. You're centered. You listen fully. You're not fidgeting with distractions or waiting to pounce with your own thoughts. A woman's tone may soften when she senses your stillness because it's like stepping into calm water. She mirrors what she feels. Not artificially, but as a natural response to presence. 8. There is no ego in the way. Sometimes conversations become arenas for ego battles, subtle competitions for who's smarter, funnier, or more right. But if you remove ego from the conversation, something beautiful happens. Sincerity takes its place. In the presence of someone whose words are not dripping with self-importance, a woman may let down her guard. Her tone becomes less about defense or performance and more about real connection. You're not trying to outshine her or prove your worth through conversation. And that creates room for her to just be herself, which often brings out a softened, more reflective tone. 9. You don't make her feel like she's being measured. People, especially women in some social environments, often carry the invisible burden of feeling evaluated by their looks, words, tone, even their silences. It's exhausting. If you are someone who makes her feel unmeasured, like she doesn't have to fit a mold, perform a role, or adjust herself to meet invisible expectations, her tone will likely shift. The way she speaks around you might take on an ease that's rare for her. She isn't calculating. She's simply communicating. And that kind of freedom often sounds like softness. 10. You respect her silence. You don't rush to fill her quiet moments. You don't mistake pauses as awkwardness. You don't pressure her to share more than she wants. That's rare. When a woman feels like silence is safe, like she won't be judged for taking a moment to reflect or choosing her words carefully, it brings down internal walls. Her voice relaxes. Her words are less about navigating pressure and more about sharing presence. Respect for silence is respect for thought, emotion, and individuality. And her soft tone is, in many ways, a thank you for that respect. 11. You bring out her reflective side. Not everyone brings out the same version of us. Some people draw out laughter, others provoke competition, some make us feel guarded. But there are a few who bring out something else. Something quieter, deeper, and more thoughtful. If your presence makes her reflect on herself, her life, or even her day, it's likely that her tone will soften around you. Reflection requires inner stillness, and the presence of someone who respects that can awaken something gentle in the way she speaks. 12. You make the moment feel less transactional. Many conversations are about exchange, information, favors, approval, efficiency, but the ones that stand out, the ones that soften us, are the ones that feel less like transactions and more like moments. If your presence makes her feel like this isn't just another interaction, she'll respond in kind. Her voice will carry more presence, more nuance, more subtle emotion, because she's not checking boxes. She's being. When you remove the need for performance, she may find herself speaking in ways that feel more authentic, even to her. Number 7, she shows concern about boundaries in a respectful way, understanding the subtle power of emotional integrity and self-awareness. In a world where emotional connections can grow in quiet and unexpected ways, one of the most graceful and meaningful signs of maturity is this. She honors the boundaries that protect the dignity of all involved. When a married woman feels a subtle draw towards someone outside of her relationship, it's not always something loud or disruptive. More often, it's internal, quiet, introspective. But here's the important part. How she responds to that feeling reveals everything about her values, self-awareness, and character. One of the clearest signs that she feels something, not necessarily romantic or physical, but emotionally resonant, is when she becomes more careful with how she interacts. Not cold, not distant, just aware, thoughtful, and deeply respectful. Let's explore the deeper meaning behind this kind of boundary-conscious behavior, and why it's actually one of the most telling and dignified signs of quiet emotional interest. 1. She starts noticing the space between you. When a woman becomes aware of how close she feels to someone, emotionally, energetically, or even just conversationally, she may begin to reflect on the nature of that closeness. This isn't fear, it's not guilt, it's simply consciousness. She might take a moment to notice how often you talk, how long your conversations last, how much of her emotional energy is flowing in your direction. And rather than letting things drift without reflection, she pauses to consider, am I being intentional with my attention? Am I protecting the spaces that matter most in my life? This pause isn't rejection, it's self-respect, and it's a quiet form of care for herself, for you, and for the commitment she has already made in her life. 2. She becomes selective with her time and words. When emotional energy begins to stir beneath the surface, time and words take on more weight. She may become more aware of how long she lingers in conversation or how deeply those talks go, not because the connection is wrong, but because it matters. This awareness often leads her to become more intentional. Maybe she doesn't text back right away. Maybe she keeps conversations lighter than before. Or maybe she avoids unnecessary one-on-one settings, even if nothing inappropriate ever happened. Why? Because she recognizes that emotional openness is a form of closeness, and she understands that how she shares herself matters, even when it's just thoughts or feelings. She chooses self-control over self-indulgence. She honors what's appropriate even when no one else is watching. That's not distance, that's dignity. 3. She self-reflects before she speaks or engages. One of the clearest signs of internal integrity is the habit of self-reflection. When a woman is quietly drawn towards someone but deeply values her own commitments, you'll notice a thoughtful pause in her interactions. She doesn't just act on impulse. She thinks. She reflects. She may ask herself, what is this feeling really about? Am I seeking emotional validation I should be getting elsewhere? Would this conversation feel different if my partner were present? These are not signs of guilt. They're signs of growth. She's not afraid of the connection. She's just committed to handling it wisely. That kind of inner responsibility is rare, and it reveals how seriously she takes both her values and her influence. 4. She avoids creating emotional dependency. Attraction isn't always about desire. It's often about emotional compatibility, the sense that someone gets you in ways that feel easy, comforting, or deeply affirming. That's why emotional attraction can feel even more powerful than physical attraction. And this is exactly why a thoughtful woman becomes cautious. She knows how easy it is to start relying on someone emotionally without realizing it. She recognizes how frequent confiding, shared vulnerabilities, and private conversations can slowly build a bond that tugs on both people. So, out of wisdom, she sets boundaries, not just to protect her marriage, but to protect you as well. She won't lean on you emotionally in ways that blur lines. She won't let you become her confidant for personal matters that belong in other spaces. And she does this gently, not to push you away, but to protect both hearts from subtle entanglements that neither person intended. 5. She mentions or reinforces her commitments, casually but clearly. When a woman respects the emotional weight of a connection, she'll often find ways to subtly reinforce her boundaries, not with harshness, but with clarity. You may notice that she occasionally mentions her spouse or family in conversation. Not in a showy or defensive way, but as a quiet reminder of her foundation. Or perhaps she keeps group settings prioritized instead of private one-on-one moments,